Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, we're going to be doing something beyond dangerous, which is we're not just going to kick the hornet's nest, but we're going to take a sledgehammer to it while we're standing on top of a ladder when it comes to today's topic, which is long overdue in terms of a question being asked as to whether or not Boruto has surpassed Isshiki's power. And being fully transparent, my stance on this, it has changed from where I was before, where I gave it a very hard no, but after sitting back and looking over this new information that we have, particularly reading between the lines of said information, I do believe we have a legitimate argument to be made whether or not Boruto has surpassed Isshiki and Baryon Mode Naruto in power. Longtime viewers of the channel, you know that when it comes to things such as this, unless we have definitive statements from reliable narrators, I tend to err on the side of caution and being conservative when it comes to matters such as this, but this is one of those moments where I think it's safe to step out on faith based on the breadcrumbs that are placed. The same way how immediately after chapter 1 I said that Boruto scales way above code and that this fight wasn't going to be close, and lo and behold that ended up being true. I think the new information now makes this case for Boruto at the very least being in the same tier as Isshiki and Baryon Mode Naruto, as in that's starting his point of power, him being closer to Baryon Mode Naruto than he is closer to Jigen in power. So before we go into the meathead aspect of Boruto move this many septillion times faster than light and he let out a Thunderburger flavored fart that destroyed a galaxy, we're going to look at some of the breadcrumbs that are in the new chapter that dropped, and then we'll transition to the feats in the lore and the connected tissue and the narrative that's set up to explain the whole premise. We had Kashin Koji explain to Boruto the power of 10 directions and how he was going to use it to train Boruto, basically turbocharge his training in the hopes that Boruto can transcend to a level where he can stop the threat that's awaiting them, known as Jura. Kashin Koji paints the shinjutsu as being well beyond Code's control, which lines up with Ada's statement of them being stronger than Code to a point she described them as being in a different league than Code. However, Kashin Koji makes the distinction even more clear when he says the most dangerous one is Jura, and that Jura will be the one who ends up killing Boruto. This is important to keep in mind based on the other breadcrumbs dropped into the story prior to this. Kashin Koji speaks of possible futures where Code is able to kill Kawaki and feed Boruto to the Ten Tails or vice versa. That means at some point Code would have had to gone after Ada and Damon, which 9 times out of 10 likely means he caught them off guard in order to get to Kawaki. But Jura, that's the issue. Jura not only kills Boruto in most of the timelines Koji saw, but he successfully had Kawaki consumed, which if that happens what means that he ran into Damon at some point just because of Ada, which means that Jura won, which means he had to done some insane training, probably using something like Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video. This video is going to be brought to you by Skillshare, the largest online community for creators that I strongly recommend as someone who has been using Skillshare for years now. What makes Skillshare unique is that it has a lot of different classes for you to choose, from graphic design to music to photography and so much more. And best of all, the on-demand platform allows you to learn at your own pace regardless of your skill level, which when combined with the classes being taught by industry experts who are teaching the classes, it's never been easier to learn a new skill or hobby. The learning paths, they are curated, sequential class collections that help you master a specific skill that you're interested in. For example, even though I've been monetized on YouTube for 9 years now between both my channels and I've got a partner manager, I still made a point to check out Marquise Brownlee's class on Skillshare called YouTube Success, Script, Shoot, and Edit with MKBHD, because even for as long as I've been doing this, I am well aware that there's still a lot that I can learn. The same with Sean Dalton's Photography Essentials, Understanding the Basics. The reason why I'm into that is one of the businesses that I'm thinking about starting away from YouTube has to deal with photography, because my mom used to have a wedding company and I saw how much the photographers were making and I want to get in on that business. Regardless as to what it is that you're thinking about signing up for, summertime is the best time to pick up a new hobby, learn some new skills, and challenge yourself. Skillshare is designed by creators for creatives. This, in my opinion, is what makes it the best online learning community. The first 500 people to use my link in the description and my pinned comment will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare to get started today. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. So if Jura captures Kawaki, that means he defeated Damon and did so at full power. Jura was able to 2-tap Kawaki and have him grunting like his name is Shannon Sharp on Instagram Live. If you know, you know, and we saw saw that it didn't matter if Kawaki used karma. He got bodied nonetheless. Based on Kawaki's statements, he at least believes himself to be strong enough to handle Code in battle. If we assume that Kawaki and Code are the exact same power level or in the same tier, because Kawaki's a little stronger, then with how easily Jura beat Kawaki, who was using karma, it means Jura is just that beastly. He beat Kawaki easier than a restrained Daemon beat Code. Kashin Koji has been specifically training Boruto to face a threat of a level of Jura's power. That doesn't automatically mean that he reached Jura's level of power. We've seen that before in Naruto as well as Dragon Ball, the series that heavily inspired Boruto's story, that this isn't necessarily always the case. In Naruto, the goal was for the Konoha 12 to each level up to a point where they could assist or directly fight in battles against the Akatsuki. They struggled against members of the Sound 4, and Rock Lee was having a hard time fighting against Kimimaro despite Kimimaro being on his deathbed. The Sound 4, as a reminder, were weaker than any Konoha Jonin, just given they needed to gang up on and use a Curse Mark power-up of a 10 times confirmed amp over their base in order to beat 2 exhausted Special Jonin being weaker than Standard Jonin. So they had to train their butts off, and we saw the fruits of their training, famously with someone like Sakura, whose taijutsu was stated to barely be above an academy graduate level, was now moving well enough that Chiyo flat out states that she never needed to help Sakura because she had already read Sasuke's movements, and she later proved Chiyo's point about her underestimating Sakura correct when Sakura battled large numbers of those puppets in the manga and did so unassisted. With Dragon Ball, which is a classic example, particularly the Cell Saga, which heavily influences Boruto, we have people like Piccolo train for 3 years to get as strong as a Super Saiyan, which that's what he did. And Vegeta trained for 3 years to surpass Goku in power, which he did. Granted, it was Heart Virus Goku, but their goal was to be strong enough to fight and defeat Dr. Gero's cyborgs. And lo and behold, they each got neg diff by all of them when 17 and 18 were finally unsealed. And we saw firsthand the very science that Trunks warned about, which is that it was strong enough to take 2 teenagers with no martial arts background and make them so powerful that not even a Super Saiyan could keep up with them, because Dr. Gero mechanically altered their human bodies to a point they outclassed the Super Saiyan warriors, just as Amato did with the Kara Inners. That's one of the many overlaps you have with Dragon Ball and Boruto. So of course, just having the goal to get to a level of a certain level of power doesn't mean that you automatically get there, but more often than not, especially in Shonen, Battle Shonen, we see like if there's a mental amp or there's a stated level of power that characters are reaching for, they more often than not, they reach it, especially if they're stated to have a high potential. Now, this is where it gets very interesting with Boruto. That supercharged training that Kashin Koji put him on, it works wonders due to the nature of how Boruto presents everything. You can't take the approach of until X character fights someone who's as strong as Y character, who's stated to be as strong as W character, who X character beat, therefore the person who wins this fight is stronger than all of these other people. There's a sliding scale approach that Boruto uses and an option to display power in a non-traditional route, and it's because of the mangas that Ikimoto has referenced in the past multiple times that directly influence the direction of Boruto. When you add in Kashin Koji using 10 directions to teach Boruto every jutsu that every version of Boruto in Possible Futures used and failed in the hopes of beefing him up to fight Jura, it makes a lot of sense. So allow me to explain even further here. From the start, Boruto possessing the genetic jackpot that he came from, it made him the ideal person to undergo Kashin Koji's intense training, which is several times more intense than anything Sasuke could use due to how 10 directions works, period. Koji was very efficient and was able to teach a high volume. When you have Minato's genius genetics, the Uzumaki genetics of a strong life force and larger than normal chakra reserves, which even though Boruto in part 1, early part 1 at least, didn't have Naruto's massive chakra reserves, he still had much larger chakra reserves than average. Coupled with both of Boruto's parents being people who received chakra from both of the children of Kaguya, Hagoromo and Hamura themselves, and Boruto being half Hyuga, and then adding in Boruto genetically now being 100% Otsutsuki, which further raises his strength due to what Otsutsuki genetics are. There was always a monster waiting to be unlocked the moment that he got properly pushed. And for Boruto, that training with Sasuke and the time skip and that training with Kashin Koji, That was the first time Boruto ever truly got pushed. As a result, we saw Boruto finally put everything together by mastering various techniques like Purple Lightning and Flying Raijin and Rasengan Uzuhiko, and it's important to take all that into account because as we've seen with numerous examples in Naruto, you can have all the power you want, but if you cannot properly use that power, if you don't have the skill using that power, it's gonna be wasted on you, something that even Kurama states, perfect example to Himawari when he says, hey, yeah, you got a higher affinity for my chakra than Naruto did, so you got a lot of potential, but whether or not we live or die, it's going to depend on your skill and talent. And he even says it as he sees her fight, like, yep, kind of made a mistake here. That's the whole reason Boruto was able to go into Konoha, which is enemy territory at this point, knowing that not only was Code there that he had to deal with, but he also had Kawaki, who the last time they faced each other, Kawaki was head and shoulders stronger than him. And now add Kawaki possessing a body of ninja tools as a cyborg, which is already a big power buff due to the nature of how Amado's ninja tech works, and having the 100% genetics of an otsutsuki in terms of the body, that is another buff, and 3 years of training and having Isshiki's karma mastered and the eye fully manifested and having none of the drawbacks that Jigen had when using Ishiki's full chakra, or even the drawbacks Ishiki had when he revived using Jigen's body, where despite being stronger, his body was falling apart even before he fought Baryon Mode Naruto. And adding that it's Kawaki's own power via his Otsutsuki genetics before he even uses the Karma Seal for even more power. There has always been a power progression that has taken place here. It's just subtle. And Boruto in just his base is clearly heads and shoulders above Code and Kawaki to a point it's laughable. He's disappointed in the progress that Kawaki made because he says he expected better of him. And Delta's looking like, what kind of training did you do? How much do you train? When we see Boruto in just his base go against Code despite Code using Karma, Boruto is portrayed as being easily above him, dodging attacks, and this is in spite of him battling someone who the manga directly tells us is stronger than the version of Jigen who fought against Naruto and Sasuke, directly putting Boruto in just his base alone without using any of Momoshiki's chakra via the Karma Seal and using any of Momoshiki's battle experience and techniques. This puts him above adult 6-pass chakra mode Naruto, Rinnegan Sasuke, and Ten Tails Jubi Amp Jigen. Add in Boruto using the planet's own chakra via the Rasengan Uzuhiko and the rotation of the planet itself, which speaks volumes to the control he has over chakra at this point and his understanding of chakra, far surpassing anything we've seen in the series prior to this, which while this is more of a hacks than it is, say, raw natural power, it is still worthy of adding that in there because it speaks volumes to the skill. And there's also a version of Boruto who had the Rasengan Uzuhiko and he's still lost in power, which means you can make the argument Jura might actually scale over Rasengan Uzuhiko. I don't think it's crazy to say that. This is even more impressive when you factor in how easily he bodied Code, when you consider Code on top of having ninja tech in his body, which makes him stronger and has a Karma Seal, but the ninja tech inside his body is also making use out of Shibai's DNA. That's even more impressive. He dogged out Code. By extension, him being significantly stronger than Kawaki, who was even stronger than Jigen alone, just off the fact that Kawaki is a perfect vessel, yet a suppressed Boruto hits Kawaki with so much force after speed blitzing an attack that moves at instantaneous speeds, and with that one hit, Kawaki saw enough that once he caught his wind, he went right into the Karma Seal, meaning that at the very least he needed that level of power in order to match the force that Boruto just hit him with. While Kashin Koji and Naruto both tell us very plainly and bluntly that Ishiki's power is on a whole different level than Jigen's, with Ishiki not even using full power when battling against any of them, not using full power until he fights against Baryon Mode Naruto, I do think at the very least, based on the impressive nature of Boruto's base being this high above Jigen, we have to discuss that real possibility that when using the power of Karma, Boruto's full power and Momoshiki's power being fused together to a base that is this strong, it should be above Ishiki right now. Just given the monster leap in power that Karma gave Boruto in part 1, a monster leaping power that for whatever reason people tried to downplay, where Boruto went from being a lower Kage tier power before he ever used the Karma seal to jumping up several tiers by the time he used True Essence of Karma. So if he was already starting out above Jigen, this 15-year-old Boruto, I don't think it's crazy to say that with full power Karma, he has surpassed Isshiki and Baryon Mode Naruto, which by extension means Jura, since again, almost no version of Boruto that Kashin Koji saw ever defeated Jura, with Kashin Koji saying there aren't too many possible futures where they would win. I think there's a very tough decision and conversation that we got to have down in the comment section, which is even crazier when you consider where all the characters ranked at the end of Boruto Part 1, which this video on the right breaks down the 15 strongest versions of Boruto characters at the end of Part 1, and over here on the left we got another anime explain video.